Okay.
So this is now streaming on YouTube and Riverside.
Beautiful thing.
Yeah. Do you want to? Let me play with the layout. Let's see what we got here. Speaker, split screen, speaker full screen. That's just going to show the slideshow. Okay, this is best.
But that's just for your visuals, right? Not necessarily what's going on to YouTube.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I can't figure that out. It always looks different from what I expect it to. I can move the three of us. Right now I see Tomek on top, Hania in the middle, and Marek at the bottom. Is that what you all see on your screen? That's on the
Yeah.
right, and then
Yeah.
the slideshow is very big on the left.
That's what I see.
I wonder what it looks like on YouTube. I'm afraid to go check because there was like interference last time. Yeah, I guess it doesn't matter. We can just roll with this. So I got my Czech Republic hoodie. Represent.
Lech Czechi Rus, baby.
Yeah. I'm representing
You're Czech.
the Czech brother.
Hania's Lech and I'm Rus.
You guys are
I got
Lech.
my Slonsk t-shirt on.
Oh, there we go.
Regional.
I don't know
representing
what that
Slonsk.
means, but it sounds pretty Slavic.
You're gonna find out in a second.
All right, so do you want to do the intro? I think you should.
Yep.
So introduce yourself, then I'll chime in, then you introduce our guest. How about that?
Great.
Ready? Everyone ready?
Let me
Big
hold on
stuff here.
one second.
Oh shit.
You're on. You see my Google now, right? Or what? No, it's okay.
No, it's still the.
See
So why?
what?
Why did you say oh shit?
Well, because you said stop.
Okay, I'm ready.
Wait, but what do you guys
was
usually
in-
do if you have to what if I have to go to the bathroom or something, or what if my partner comes in the room
No,
and I
no
have to talk to him?
problem. No problem. Just we'll
Just
either
do my
carry
thing?
on or we can pause, or we usually just in the live stream we usually just let it roll and then I'll fix it in post.
Okay. Cool. So
Okay,
it's live stream, but then it's like you can edit.
Yeah, there's the raw version that's streaming and it stays on my YouTube channel, and then I do a cooked, edited version later.
Awesome.
So we're raw dogging right now. All right, so you ready?
Yeah.
In 5, 4, 3.
Witam wszystkich deviantów tekstowych. Welcome all you textual deviants. This is another episode of Texting. We are season 4. We are episode 2. And today we are discussing the seminal album by the Polish hip-hop group Kaliber 44, 63 minuty dookoła świata. My name is Tomek in St. Petersburg.
And I'm Marek Wola in Taipei.
And today we are joined by special guest Hania, representing Poland live in Warsaw. How you doing, Hania?
Witaj, cześć, siema.
Your mic was
Hold
sounding
up.
super crazy right there.
Really? How about now?
Also crazy. Mark, is it sounding weird to you?
Yeah, it's really distorted.
Ooh.
You were fine before,
It wasn't before.
We're gonna have to do that again, I think, because that was.
Yeah, for sure.
How about still?
Yeah, still.
Yeah, it's like buzzing and I don't see anything showing up on your levels here. Keep talking.
Me or Hania?
Hania.
Strange, because I haven't changed anything on my side. Like I haven't touched a thing.
It's like not even registering.
Oh wow.
Maybe okay. So leave and then come back. Let's try that. We'll stay here, but just log off and then re-enter the studio. Try
Okay.
that.
That sounded. The last word she said sounded okay. It's funny.
Really? It was.
Yeah,
I
just
it
the
was
okay, but I don't know.
buzzy and
Yeah, no.
I don't know.
I wonder why that is.
I don't know, but like before, it was all
Yeah.
green and yellow, and then it just there's nothing at all. Maybe her connection is not that secure.
Yeah.
I mean the plug-in.
So where's wifey off to?
Oh, well, I'll tell you later.
All right.
Hello. Is that better?
Yeah, that's okay.
Nice. Okay. I
Now
switched.
you're on top, and I'm echoing.
Oh dear.
Do you hear an echo?
No, it's okay.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe it's just an initial adjustment. All right. Let's check your levels again, Tomek.
We got a message in the live stream chat, yeah?
Oh, we do.
Morning, gents.
Hey,
So that's
I
your
think that's
Riverside
Craig.
audience.
I think that's Craig. Actually,
So he's not even watching on YouTube. He's watching on Riverside, yeah?
evening. Yeah. Well, it could be on YouTube. I don't know. Are you on YouTube or Riverside?
Well, no, I'm not, and that's why the message came through on.
He says I can hear an echo.
Yeah.
I think that's you, Craig. Yeah. Who's echoing? Is it me? And ladies. Who's echoing? Is it Marek?
Check one, check one, check one.
Test.
Check.
Hello, hello, hello.
Testing.
That's not good. I was echoing like last time too. I don't hear it now. It was you, but now it's stopped. Okay. That's good.
All right. Thanks,
So it's
Greg,
just
for the sound
like
check.
an initial thing. All right. Hold on. Let me close out of the chat.
This is not the easiest start today. We're 35 minutes deep into.
Yeah, but only 8 minutes into the live stream. Does this count towards our 63 minutes?
Fuck that.
Might help us speed things up. All right, my levels are okay. Tomek, again.
Check one, all good. Yo, what it is.
Nope. Now you're not appearing at all. Nothing.
But you can
Keep
hear me,
talking.
Though. Hello.
I do hear you, but you should be showing up here in the green.
Maybe you gotta just let that go, bro.
Well, then what's the point of even checking? Hania?
I'm not... Okay.
Checking out my mic.
See?
Checking out my mic.
She's in the green, and you
Greeny
are
greens.
nowhere to be seen.
Fresh greens.
I like the beans.
Get my green beans. Remain unseen.
Okay. He's on the tube.
Gristly and
all
lean.
Right. Can you hear all three of us, Mr. Hire? I have to assume so. This is very disturbing. Echoes, people's sounds disappearing.
That's okay, because this is horrorcore rap.
Well, okay, but it's not silent rap.
You're in your psycho podcast era.
I can hear you all. Okay.
Vipassana meditation up in this shit.
I guess we're good to go. After almost 10 minutes and before that, like half an hour. So let's do it again in 5, 4, 3,
Witam wszystkich deviantów tekstowych and welcome to another episode of Texting. We're in season 4. We're in episode 2. And this is Tomek in St. Petersburg.
And I'm Marek Vola in Taipei, representing the Czech Republic.
We also have a very special guest, moja siostra Hania. Hania, where are you at today?
I'm based in Warsaw, so cześć wszystkich, jakie macie I witaj, witaj.
Pew, pew, pew. Those of you watching, not listening, will already see that our text for today is the seminal Polish hip-hop album 63 minuty dookoła świata by Kaliber 44. Lots of shashashashashashas there. But yeah, very excited to be discussing this album today. It's an album that means a lot to me. Being a half Pole with my sister here, and Mark, excited to be introducing you to the world of Polish hip hop.
Yeah, and I should point out that I did use my Polish name,
Marek,
even though
exactly.
I'm wearing my Czech Republic hoodie. I'm also representing Poland with my moniker of Marek. So
I think I enjoy the
happy to be
Vola
here.
as much as the Marek.
Vola.
I like the idea of like
Vola.
the will, you know?
Marek
freedom?
Vola.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, like, or will, right? Because Mark will. Yeah.
Yeah.
Trying to think what free will is.
You
Volna,
sent it
Volna
to me.
something.
Volna Vola. You sent it
Okay,
to me.
Volna, yes, Volna Vola. I like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So pretty fresh cover art. I like this cassette version we're looking at too. If we were thinking about a Cypress Hill analog, I feel like that bucket hat on one of the skeletons kind of has that tone to it. Any thoughts about the cover art from either of you?
Who's wearing the bucket hat? Is that Mr. Magik or one of the other
I
guys?
feel like it could be Abradab. I think that's kind of more his vibe.
It reminds me of Rennie of the Stone Roses, the drummer. He always wears a bucket hat.
Okay.
Would have been around the same time.
Or Fred Durst.
Well, let's not mention him.
Dude had some flows at times. I will say that. Hania,
You're
do you like
gonna-
the cover art?
Yeah, it's cute. I never thought about it before. I wonder if one of them drew it or what's the origin of that. But I feel like I've seen the cassette in person for some time. I don't know, Tom, did you ever have it?
No, I had the CD.
Okay.
But I was watching a Polish hip hop YouTuber, and he was like unboxing the vinyl version, and the visuals looked really sick, like on the inside sleeves and stuff. So like blown up. There was a lot more to it than just this specific picture. You know, there was a whole like series of visuals. But maybe we should keep going. We're gonna keep this episode popping off and not get bogged down. So
Well, hold
on.
on. As we go along, you need to translate things for our non-Polish speaking audience.
absolutely.
So first of all, the name of the group, Kaliber, is Kaliber,
Right.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
and then 44 is 44, but that's not what you said earlier. But we can see that's
What do you mean
it
that's not what I
is.
said earlier?
No, you
mean
said
word,
the Polish.
Yeah.
Yeah,
44.
yeah,
Do you want to try
And then
repeating that?
yeah. That's a tongue twister.
Really
And
try.
the-
Try. 44. Not terrible. Yeah. What does it sound like? What are these sounds? Because I mean,
A lot of palatalization, you know, which
okay.
is characteristic of Slavic languages, I guess.
Because even to like Liliana's ear, my wife Liliana, who's Russian,
Mm-hmm.
Polish for her is just like a bunch of the so it doesn't
Ch-ch-ch.
really carry over so much to Russian, even despite there being a lot of parallels between the
Right,
languages. So
right.
Poland's invested heavily in those particular sounds, I guess.
Well, what about the title of the album itself?
Sure. So 63 minutes around the world. So we've got a nice literary reference there to the French writer Jules Verne and his Around the World in 80 Days. And I guess 63 minutes is the album track time.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't verified that, but let's
It
assume
is.
so. Okay.
It is. Or I don't know, on Spotify it says 62 minutes, but it's 62 and change, so
Okay.
round up to 63.
Nice.
And then I think we'll find out later that the name of the group has some literary significance too, but more on that.
Yeah, I feel like you've been
in a
doing
few
that digging,
minutes.
so looking forward to hearing your research there.
Yeah, well, I hope you won't be disappointed.
All right, so you guys can see the next slide, okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we're looking at the 4 members of Kaliber at the time of this release. So this is their second album. We've got the 2 brothers, Abradab and Yoka. They're pictured left and right of this trio. And we've got Magic, or Magik, I should say, who passed away in 2000 through suicide, and we'll discuss that, I'm sure, later. Magik. This is embarrassing. Magik left the group after this album and went on to form another seminal Polish rap group called Paktafonika, and we'll discuss them a little bit later. And a critical 4th member of the group who it would behoove me not to mention is DJ Felix, who is responsible for some of the production, a lot of the scratching sounds throughout, and adds a phenomenal contribution to the group. I mean, we really see turntables play a prominent role on this album, and I love it. And I think, Mark, you mentioned DJ Felix being one of your standout tracks, which is also a name of one of the songs.
Yeah.
All right. So would someone else like to read this little intro to the group? Maybe Hania, because you can pronounce all this stuff.
Yeah, I can read it.
All right.
Keep in mind, first time seeing. Okay, Kaliber 44 was founded by the Martin brothers, Michał or Yoka, and Marcin or Abradab. They were later joined by a classmate of Marcin, Piotr Łuszcz, whose stage handle was Magik. It was 1994 and hip-hop remained a largely unknown phenomenon in Poland, despite the fact that in many countries to the west, it was a driving force in the music industry. Polish listeners were only exposed to bits of this fascinating culture, which thrived in poorer neighborhoods of larger cities. In the late 1990s, hip-hop played a similar role to that of punk rock in the 1980s. It described prevailing social relations and was a voice of dissent. Magik, for example, was inspired by the song Ring, 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 Ha Ha Hey from De La Soul's second album. Our origin comes from the fact that we could not sit and just listen to the music. We thought we could do it, so why not? 44 is the magic number, Kaliber, the size of that number. The name, however, comes from when we still played gangsta.
Yeah, it sounds kind of funny, but Mark, any thoughts on this initial intro?
Yeah, so Abradab, that seems to be related to abracadabra. So there's like a kind of magical incantation, which reminds us of Magik, right? What about Yoka? Is that like Joker or something, or is that totally unrelated?
I don't know. I don't know that it's necessarily Joker. Hanya, does it sound
I read
like anything
somewhere
to
that it is based or inspired by Joker.
Cool.
I think I read that the 3 names were somehow pulled from like English language characters or fantasy somehow. Yeah.
So Joker, abracadabra, and magic.
Magic, like magician. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, magician, or it's like magus. I've got something on magic I'm going to share later, but wait till we get to, I guess, the film, the biopic.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know who's saying this, who's being quoted here, but it's like,
It's Magik.
okay, it's Magik. So it seems like he's talking about what, a 44 caliber handgun or something. Yeah. But there is supposedly another meaning. So who knows what the truth is. Maybe it's all of the above. Both
Absolutely.
and.
All right, next up we've got an image of the Polish Pushkin. I hope our Polish audience is not offended by that comparison. Adam Mickiewicz. Mark, you requested that I add this image, so why don't you take over for a second?
Well, just because this is one of the alternative meanings of the name, allegedly, there is a particular epic poem or play by this national poet, like you say, the Pushkin of Poland. That's a good description. And what
I
a
think they may
face!
even have known each other, by the way.
That wouldn't surprise me. I mean, what an amazing face! Look at that guy.
Yeah.
That's a. I wish I could have such an author picture on the back of my books. That's amazing. But I've never read any of his stuff, but I've always heard about Pan Tadeusz.
Yeah.
That's like the Polish Iliad and Odyssey, I guess. I mean, it's like the national poem, or I guess the Russian equivalent, since we're talking about Russian equivalents, would be what? Evgeny Onegin, probably.
Yep.
So yeah, that's definitely something to put on the reading list for later. But I think the next slide shows maybe the poem that inspired the name potentially.
I
So
also want to mention, I just looked this up now, but the born and died dates for Chopin, the other huge icon from Polish culture, is 1810 and 1849. So very similar dates, and we know that they're
roughly
both heavily associated
contemporaneous
with the Romantic tradition.
Yes, right. Certainly for Chopin
And Mickiewicz, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Hania, do you want to add anything?
Yeah,
about
he's kind of
Mickiewicz?
so another analog would be Byron. He's like the Polish Byron, you know,
Mhm.
which, you know, Pushkin is too, the Russian Byron, I guess. So yeah, he he looks like a Byronic hero.
Absolutely.
So I guess it's appropriate that, you know, an outlaw hip hop group would be inspired by the national poet, who also happens to be a romantic.
Yes and no, right? Because in a way, it would seem like Mickiewicz would represent the establishment, and Kaliber were. I'm sure they weren't like fans of, being in class and learning Mickiewicz. Who knows? They do make a lot of literary references, so I'm not trying to like disparage their literary knowledge or interest, but you get my point as well. Like they were trying to
but
be
think about like the romantics in modern Anglo-American society, right? Like we still, I know I did, like I still, even as a rebellious teen who hated school, I still admired Byron, Shelley, Keats, Yeats, you know, or not Yeats, Blake, Yeats too, but he's much later, right? So they still kind of had an outsider status, even though they were also like canonized.
Sure.
But you know, it's not like whatever they force you to read in in high school, you know. Like that's the romantics weren't part of the curriculum in my high school. That was something that I had to discover later on my own.
I feel you, but I would say like Pantadeus is like absolutely the text that's probably forced onto kids, you know?
Yeah, they would be like these days they're studying for the Matura, which is the national exam, and like something like an interpretation of Mickiewicz would for sure be on it, which for me is like kind of mind-blowing because it's really dense stuff, but that's just, yeah, it would be
Hmm.
absolutely required.
Do you have any additional thoughts on him, Hania? I'm not like
Unfortunately,
expecting you
not
to, but
really. I never studied or read his work. I just know what we're surrounded by his just vestiges of his
have you seen like
cult.
any monuments to him in Warsaw or anything
Yeah,
named after
yeah.
him?
Yeah, and actually just now there came out like some comedy called Pieprzeć Mickiewicza, which is like fuck me meets, I don't know if I should curse, but yeah, it's like
You
what
should.
F word Mickiewicza, and it's not about him, the film, but it's just making a joke for the purposes of some ranchy comedy. Um,
Ranchy. Kind of like a cool ranch. uh yeah, I remember, I think in Krakow he's in the center of the Stary Rynek, some monument to Mickiewicz, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, let's move on. So, Mark, anything about this image?
How do you pronounce the title?
Jade.
Jade.
Mhm.
Yeah, so this is, I'm not sure if it's an epic poem or a epic drama. I mean, it looks like it was staged or has been staged since the time it was composed, but I think it's about the dead, like dead ancestors. Is there some kind of Polish celebration equivalent to Halloween, like a Polish Day of the Dead or something?
yeah,
Is
there's
that the
a Day
name
of the
of it?
Dead. It's All Souls Day.
Yeah.
It's the
So I think that's the subject of this. And
Catholic Church, stand up!
well, is it? I mean, it's probably influenced by that, but isn't it like, doesn't it harken back to like
That's a good
pre-Christian?
point. Yeah, I mean, in Mexico, certainly.
Yeah. Well, and Samhain, the Celtic Halloween, you know, that's even the Anglo-American Halloween, right? Like it's clearly got pagan roots, right? So I don't know,
Pagan
but
roots, stand up!
yeah, allegedly there's something about the number 44 in this particular work which may or may not have inspired the name of the group. So that's something I'd like to investigate further. I mean, I'd actually like to read this, you know.
Mark being the resident numerologist of the pod.
Well, since Steve is not here, I guess
Exactly.
that's my role. Four.
Oh shit! Okay. All right. So, Hanya, I didn't prepare you for this, but since you're wearing an appropriate top, why don't you speak a little bit about this slide, and you can go anywhere you want with it, and I'll jump in if I feel it necessary.
Sure, yeah. So Katowice, Poland, it's mining town.
I guess, sorry, before you go on, we should mention that, yeah, the group Kaliber come from Katowice, and that's why we're gonna mention this particular city and area now.
Yeah, in general, Silesia is the region that's showing in the map, so southwest Poland. And like Katowice and in several other cities, it's mining or post-mining, so a lot of the buildings are still kind of tarnished by that coal dust, and very urban place, but surrounded by mountains and forest regions.
Yeah, and
I'm not sure what to add.
that's
Yeah.
good. That's good. And also, like, Hania and our roots are in this area, so I think for me, Kaliber are even more special because Katowice is a city where my mom went to university, and yeah, we'd always go through that train station. It was a fucking grubby place in the 90s. Now it's completely renovated and, EU moneyed out, but back in the day it was like the emblem of kind of Soviet depression economically, and I always felt kind of sketched out in Katowice in general. Again, though, it's been completely renewed. I mean, Hanya, you went there somewhat recently for a hip hop show, right?
Yeah, I think it was last year I went to a hip hop show. Pactophonica we'll talk about was there.
Pactophonica. You don't have to
I'm still
anglicize that language.
By the way, I'm still cringing about my raunchy ranchy from earlier. Maybe you can fix that one for me, guys.
No. This is the stuff that we love it because we get ripped in the comments for it.
Good. Okay. Yeah, it was
Remember,
great.
it's raw. We're raw dogging.
Yeah. This awesome arena show. I've been to a couple concerts like that here in Poland where they'll have artists going from like the previous generation. So yeah, it was like Pactophonica, Molesto was there, and then going over the years like OSTR, who was more bigger in like the 2000s, 2010s, still popular, and then Problems was there, who's very like now popular. So amazing show. And Katowice is just, it's like Tommy, like you said, it's really renovating. Some of those old mines are now places where you can do like a tour on a boat, and you can like put on a mining like helmet and costume and go down in the elevators, and it's become part of their tourism. I think there's even like an old mining community called Nikishowiec that's now an UNESCO site, I think, and it's just a place where the mining families would live, or that they would be set up with a church and a school and everything so that they could work nearby. And, yeah.
I feel like this would be a good time for you two to share your Kaliber 44 origin stories.
I will do in just a second. I've got a
Okay.
slide set up for that.
All right.
Hanya, do you want to briefly talk about this image?
I just wanted you to put in a picture because Spodek, the big concert hall, it's been there for at least 50 years and just a popular local landmark. And I think the last Pactophonica concert was there. So,
and I picked a significantly vintage photo, which kind of takes away the glamour. And also, Mark, it kind of gives you a sense of, these Soviet blocks in the background. And this architecture itself is probably, some Soviet futurist or brutalist type.
Yeah.
Maybe more futurist than brutalist, but
yeah. It looks like something a cosmonaut would fly into space on.
Yeah, shout out Gagarin.
Actually, those block apartments look like a lot of buildings in Taipei. So
yeah. All right. I'm gonna read a little bit about Katowice. Hopefully, it won't bore you, but we really want to set the scene. 1990s Katowice. This is where Kaliber came from. This is obviously like a very interesting time in Poland as they transition from communism. We got Solidarność, which was 91, 89, something like that. And so this is a country very much finding its feet. And I'm just going to read a couple things that I have in my notes about these different shifts. So the economy was shifting from heavy industry, coal mining and steel, to more service-oriented and private enterprises. However, the transition was difficult with high unemployment rates and economic instability. Shopping centers and Western brands were starting to appear, but traditional markets and small shops were still the norm. One anecdote that I like to share from my cousin Darek about these kind of early years of capitalism is like you'd go from everyone wearing the same pair of shoes, which wasn't, maybe ideal. Then you'd go into the shop and you'd see all of these varieties of Nikes and Reeboks, but you couldn't afford any of them. So it's like, which was better? The Polish zloty had recently been redenominated, stabilizing inflation, but economic disparities were visible. Katowice remained heavily industrial, with coal mines and steel mills dominating the skyline. Pollution was still an issue. The Spodek Arena, which we are looking at, or we just looked at, was a major cultural and sports hub. The influence of Western culture was growing, with Polish youth embracing global music, fashion, and movies. MTV Polska launched in 2000. Internet mobile phones not widespread yet. Public transport widely used, but many roads and railways in poor condition. Cars from the communist era, like the Fiat Polonaise and Fiat 126P, were still common, but newer Western cars were appearing. And overall, Katowice was a city in transition, and Poland itself was moving closer to joining the EU, which happened in 2004. All right, so Mark has suggested that we move on to the origin story, and mine is very fresh in my memory, despite this being something like 1998, I'm guessing. So I would have been around 16 years old. I was already pretty invested in hip-hop music, and I would spend my summers in Poland and wanted to hear what was going on in the Polish hip-hop scene. I was in a city nearby Katowice called Bielsko-Biała, and went into the local branch of Empik, which is like the Sam Goody of Poland, and just asked the guy behind the counter to play me something fresh. And he put on this record, and I vividly remember listening to the first two tracks and then deciding, this was good. This was good enough, right? Because I felt like I was taking a risk, because you're skeptical about like what Poland's going to be able to produce. Is it going to be super corny? But the first two tracks, the lyrics were so kind of bizarre, like the Gruby Czarny Kot thing, which we'll get into in a second. That was like my first impression, right? Of this song about that sounded like a nursery rhyme, but then I also heard the word kurva prominently, so I knew it wasn't exactly PG. But that was enough to convince me, and then I just I would start walking around Poland listening to it wherever I was, kind of just headphone experience, and it was pretty revelatory and an amazing album for me, like absolutely amazing. Even though I was mainly experiencing it sonically without understanding a lot of the lyrics, so that I'm sorry to go on for so long, but so until yesterday, we're talking 2025, which is how many years later, that I am actually like deciphering a lot of the texts. So we'll get into that topic as well a little bit later. But Hania, what about you? How did you discover Kaliber? Was it through me?
Yeah, and it's cool to hear your story about hearing them first in the Bielsko-Biała, because I don't know, and we never talked about it, so that's super interesting. I actually thought you got it from one of our cousins or something like that.
I got into Fish through Majena's ex, Seb.
Oh.
But Kaliber, I was like, that's how I got into Kaliber.
Okay. Yeah, so I remember hearing this album we're talking about today from you just a little bit then, and Fish, and then when I moved back to Poland, which is like 5 or 6 years ago, that's when I watched Jestem Bogiem, which we'll mention, Jesteś Bogiem, which we'll mention later, and when I started being curious again about Polish hip hop. So I kind of was listening to other American hip hop or other music, and then came back to it after I moved back, kind of like listening to those albums.
And what about you, Mark? I mean, obviously it's much more recent for you, but I'm curious to hear like your very first aesthetical impressions.
Well, you have to remember that I'm more of a rocker than a
Sure.
hip hop guy. So actually, as you two were talking, I was wondering if there was like a comparable phenomenon like with Kino in Russia. Like before, it mentioned something about punk rock in the 80s or
Yeah.
late 80s. So it's like, the youth maybe maybe that's like a worldwide phenomenon. Like it went from punk rock in the 80s to hip hop in the 90s, right? Was there a similar trend in Poland, and was there is there like a Kino equivalent in Poland?
I'm sure there
I'm
is.
not
You know
answering
what?
your
No, but you
question,
know
but
what's
that's
interesting is like in the image that I projected of the Spodek Entertainment Hall, I can see a poster. I mean, obviously you can't see it now, but of a band called Kult, Kult. They may be that. I would have to research further, but yeah, it could be. I mean, it's interesting point you
well,
raised.
it seems like I did end up watching the film, the biopic that we're going to talk about later. I didn't just watch 63 minutes. I watched the whole thing, but it seemed like in the studio they were well, there was like a long-haired, rock group that was trying to get some studio time, and then like um Pactophonica was like asking for more time of their own, right? Do you remember that
Yeah.
scene? And
Yeah.
then it seemed, and what's his name? Their manager Gustav, he was saying, "Oh, I don't usually work with artists like you guys, but you're something special." So it seemed like I don't know if what did that mean? Did he represent like opera singers or something? But I assumed maybe he like worked with rock artists,
Yeah.
and then he kind of transitioned into hip hop, like I don't know, a Rick Rubin character who started out, playing in punk bands and then started working with the Beastie Boys, and then, later Jay-Z and so on.
Right.
So maybe not that Gustav was a producer or as hands on, but you know what I'm saying? Like he's
Absolutely.
on the cusp of that transition
Yes.
from rock or punk rock to hip hop. So
Right.
as a rocker myself, I'd be interested. I like, what I heard, and we can talk about individual tracks and like what the highlights for me were, but I'm now also interested in trying to find like a Kino equivalent
Mhm.
in Poland, if such a group exists,
Yeah.
like
Okay.
that. What was our boy's name?
Victor Soy.
Choi. Soy, yeah.
Yeah. Or
Che,
Che. Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Yeah, soy, yeah, right. Soy boy. I mean, I wonder, is there like a Polish Kurt Cobain before the hip hop craze took over?
Hania, do you want to speak to that?
I don't know because I don't know if it was. I can't speak to that. Yeah, there's a few bands um that sound really like stripped down to me, and I compare them to rock that I was hearing maybe in like the 90s or the 00s, but I don't know about exactly like punk equivalent. Yeah.
So the next slide we're looking at just says flow, and then it gives a definition of flow. And I put this here because I think this is what stood out to me when it comes to Kaliber's sound. I feel like I was very impressed with their flow. So it's just very confident. It's playful, staccato, riding the beats in all different kinds of ways, and arguably prioritizing flow over maybe, I don't want to like say necessarily to a detriment of the content, but possibly they would care less about an overall thematic coherence. There still are strong themes, but I've seen that argued anyway. I wouldn't want to, again, suggest that Magik's texts in particular aren't profound, because he's clearly like a genius, in my opinion, and just able to channel a lot of really deep thoughts in his raps. But yeah, as far as me having that initial insecurity or skepticism about whether Polish rap was going to have, a really good ability, yeah, Kaliber, they just seemed like absolute pros in terms of their flow.
Yeah, I agree based on what I've heard, which is this album.
Hania, anything about the flow or the sound?
Yeah, I mean, just like, yeah, listening this time around, I'm amazed by how just words are reflected back on themselves or repeated but not repeated. And I even saw one section that somebody had marked in Genius that or in the website Genius, commenting on the song, that the words it's the same words going backwards and forwards
Yeah, I saw that too.
in the sentence. So I hadn't realized they did so much like word and sound play until this listen.
Yeah, and I think, you and I talked about this a little bit before, but they almost not necessarily deserve more credit than like rappers in New York, let's say, but when you are working in such an isolated environment where you're the pioneers and you're still able to achieve that level of mastery, it's like being a basketball player, like being a top level basketball player if you're not from a basketball culture, or something like that. That's what I think was especially impressive for me. It's like usually you kind of rely on the competition or your peers to kind of raise your game, and they would have had to kind of be pushing each other without that larger competitive sphere, if you want to call it that. So let's move.
But also that gave them the opportunity to experiment more, right? Like they were starting from scratch in a way. So like, they were able to design the blueprint for what Polish hip hop would be.
Definitely. I mean, there were entries into the sphere earlier, but I would say most critics or fans just consider it more crude. I don't want to like be too much of a hater, because those people were important as well. But yeah, just the sonic levels that Kaliber achieved were something like another level, in my opinion. So I'm gonna run through tracks, and you guys are welcome to jump in as much as you want. If you feel like you've got nothing for that particular song, it's all good as well.
Mhm.
The album starts with a track called Suchka, which hang out. Is that a word that you hear? Is it a word you use?
Yeah, I've heard it around, but
I'm not trying to like say you should like endorse it or something. I'm just wondering if it's like, because
yeah, I think it's common. I think it's
I
common.
just remembered like in Russian we say suka. So yeah, and that word is very common, often coming from my partner, and paired with the word blyat. So I'm not sure how that links thematically to this song, but this track is fire, in my opinion. It's mainly an instrumental track with scratching and the repeated words "mogę spróbować," which means like I can try it. Mogę spróbować, and then it ends with pewnego dnia. Yeah. Any thoughts about this initial first track?
Great
Initial
title.
first track. Yeah.
Did you translate it for those that are just listening?
I just did, yeah. Mogę spróbować, I can try it. Which again, if you come back to me listening for the first
title.
Yeah, bitch. My bad if I didn't.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, and so me listening and deciding whether I'm going to buy this album, and then hearing the words like Mogę spróbować, like, I can try it. I was like, it kind of opened my heart up to, I'll give this a shot. Hania, do you like this track?
Yeah, I mean, I was actually like jazzed by the sample, which I recognized. It was like they have a garbage sample in there from the
really?
song. Yeah, from the song Number One Crush, which was on the Romeo and Juliet soundtrack from
Wow, I didn't
the
pick
Baz
that
Luhrmann
up.
film.
Do you know
So,
like which part of the track is?
it's this like that breathy like
The kind of the
sound.
sexual moaning almost.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. I like that actually. So, but that's interesting. Okay. All right, Mark, should we go to the next track?
Yeah.
Okay. So, really important track, I would say, for this album. It's called Gruby Czarny Kot. And then you've kind of got like a second, well, in parentheses, Przebiegnam drogę, a chuj mu w dupę nawet 13 w piątek, which this translates to. Mark, do you want to read the translation?
Fat black cat. He crossed our path. I fuck him in the ass even on Friday the 13th.
Yeah. So, pretty funny. We could actually link this, come to think of it, to the Stevie Wonder song Superstition, which is like, a condemnation of people that are overly superstitious. This track is doing something similar. I found this term, paraskevidekatriaphobia, which is supposed to mean phobia of Friday the 13th, I guess. So they're mocking that, and I just highlighted one line from the track, which says "Przesąd to głupota dla plebsu I chłopa," which means superstition is stupidity for the plebs and peasants. But the track itself is like, actually, this has a sample as well, which is "You Do Something to Me" by Frank Sinatra. And musically, this is like a really good song. The vocals,
it's a highlight for me, a standout.
Cool. What do you like about the track? I mean, can you verbalize
well,
it?
I sent you the musical term leitmotiv, right? This is from Wagnerian opera. It's like a repeated musical.
I thought it was leitmotiv.
It's German, so leitmotiv.
Oh yeah, okay.
But maybe the French pronounce it differently, but anyway, I'm feeling more Nordic today, so we'll stick with that. But it's Aryan. Like more Aryan.
Sorry.
like Kanye. So it's just a musical phrase that's repeated, a kind of musical theme, right? And so this, every time I hear it, I think of the cat, right? Because there are like 3 cat related tracks on this album, and always we hear that whatever instrument it is, we were discussing it in WhatsApp.
Yeah.
Is it a bassoon? Is it a baritone sax? I don't know, but it's that.
Is it a synthesizer, right?
Yeah. Well, maybe they processed it somehow,
right,
but they probably sampled it from something. You say it's from a Sinatra track? That part is?
Well, it says it samples from the Sinatra. I don't know if that is the bit that they're sampling.
Which Sinatra song?
You Do Something to Me.
Yeah, I'd have to. I'm not familiar with that, so I'd have to do a bit of research. But it's a great theme there's something hypnotic about it, obviously, because it's just repeated over and over, so it's like trance
Yeah. Right.
inducing.
Yes.
And I mean, it's the perfect beat for them to flow over, I guess, right? So
Absolutely.
yeah, I like how, I mean, this particular track is a highlight for me, and then every time it appears, I'm like, yeah, there it is again. So I don't know what they're trying to tell us about cats. I don't know if there's any deeper meaning. Maybe they're recommending some kind of Polish bestiality, but it's entertaining, whatever their purpose.
Yeah, and again, I love how much space is given to the turntable and to just the instrumental aspect. So it's like really banging, you know. There's a really emphatic panning feature. So if you're listening with headphones, you really hear like the grube czarny, ko przebieg na drogę, and it's like each word is coming from a different side of your ears, which is really nice. And yeah, a highlight for me as well. Hania, anything on this track?
Yeah, for me it's like really just wild and cool. And I don't know if you had already mentioned it, but the fat black cat crossing the path, I think it's from some like Polish cartoon or like Polish rhyme, nursery rhyme, something.
Yeah, that's something I kind of hear like throughout is the DJ samples different kind of nursery rhyme sounds, right? Kind of reminds, which is a very like common thing to do, I think, in old school hip hop as well, is to like take funny instructions or vocal clips from like the 1940s or 1950s, right? Jay Dilla has done that a lot. Cut Chemist. I was thinking even like aspects of DJ Shadow, I feel in a track like this. Shall we?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I've totally like jacked the way that my screen is set up, so I have to like constantly be shifting between windows, but we'll forget that. All right. This is like, I guess, the first kind of more standard rap track of the album, Kontem Oka. Genius has Kontem as account in English, but like bank account or something. But I've seen the track translated as corner of the eye, which makes more sense to me. Oka is supposed to be a play on the word oko, which means eye. And Svego Oka for me is like your point of view. So for me, it's like the track has always meant like seeing things from like everybody's got their own perspective. And this track is exclusively Yoka. So it's kind of interesting that there are a few tracks that just feature one rapper. Maybe that's like, that's their baby or something on the album.
Mm-hmm. And Oka for the English listeners is okay.
Yeah. I mean, is it though? I mean, it is.
Well, it looks like it. It's literally O period K
Right.
period Oka. But
Yeah,
as
that's
you
true.
say, it
Yeah,
has
that's
that.
true. Right.
Yes. But as you say, it has that association with the word for I.
And a Polish person would say what, Hanging like for okay. Okay, just right?
Oka, right? Or
Yeah,
no?
or okay, or okay.
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 Well, I mean, the way I'm saying it, it's Oka, Mark, because it's like the O. If you pronounce the two letters separately, then it's Oka, right?
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, when they want to say okay, they just say okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Oka.
Hanya, anything about this track or Marek? We don't have to have long
Nothing
talks.
from me.
Just
Yeah, no comments on this one.
all right. So think I'm going to skip over the next slide, although it is kind of just some interesting commentary, but I don't think it's critical. And let's get into what I would consider one of the absolute like standout tracks on the album, which is called Film. And again, this is interesting when it comes to translation as well. If you guys have any thoughts, let me know. But like film, obviously, literally would just mean film, as in movie, which again is interesting if we think about kino.
Yeah.
But Wiki translates this as the trip, and everything I've read about this track, including like the lyrics speaking for themselves, especially when I like dug deeper yesterday, it's actually just about like a marijuana trip. So the film, you could say, is like the idea of like the film of your experience on this drug. Like you start the movie and it kind of you ride it out.
Yeah.
I put at the top that a lot of interesting references and variety of the Polish fantasy writer Stanisław Lem, Mount Olympus, Tabula Rasa, John Locke, Troy, Mecca.
Stanislav Lem.
Yeah, have you read him?
What about him? Well, he, if I'm not mistaken, the word robot comes from one of his books or plays. Like he originated that term.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Let me look that up and double check while y'all are talking.
Well, Hania, what do you think? Do you like this song, and is it a song that's kind of more familiar to you, perhaps, than some other songs on the album?
Yeah, I think so. And I really enjoy how they like weave in and out of the refrain, and they each start with a "Ja zaczynam
Yeah,
oto moja
totally.
kabina,"
Yeah,
and it's very like crafted. It's in a
yeah,
way, it's like more of a structured song than some of the other ones.
agree.
Crazy references, hard to understand exactly like from line to line, but it makes it interesting.
Yeah, this part about Lem is funny in the track. He's like, I ja wiem, że Lem jest fantastą. Piszę, że przybysze są zieloni jak ciasto kiwi. So which just means like he writes that the newcomers are green like kiwi cake. And then dla mnie obrzydliwi, which means they're disgusting. Yeah, but again, flow, right? Flow is absolutely prominent on this track. Tu się wchodzi, naciska, ogląda się z bliska. Dziś wszystko, co daleko i blisko. Joka, foka, sroka, oka, nieważne. Każdy tu ma jazdy, niech zgadnę. Ktoś tu jest magiem naprawdę. Dalej, po lewej ręce, cudo więcej, przędej. Zaraz się zakręcę, pędzę tam teraz. I'm not doing that just because it's fun or to show off, but you kind of get a little sense of that bounce. And you know, it also shows like how crude the English translation comes off, right? Because if you just read it, this is my cabin. This is where you come in, press, take a closer look. It doesn't have the same vibe at all. So rap. Obviously, you'd have to take a lot of artistic license in the translation process if you wanted to capture some of the bounce that these guys are getting into their flows. Mark, do you have an answer for us?
I've got an update on the robots.
Okay.
It's not actually Stanislav Lem, but there's something interesting about him too. So robot is actually from the Czech Republic, from robota, forced labor. The term was coined in K. Čapek's play R.U.R. Rossum's Universal Robots 1920. But I knew I'd heard of Stanislav Lem. He is the author of Solyaris. You know the Russian film,
right?
Solyaris, that's based on his novel, and it says that he was the most widely read science fiction writer in the world at one time. So,
Wow.
1921 to 2006. Yeah, he wrote Solaris. Whose film is that? Tarkovsky, yes. Yeah, Andrei Tarkovsky's 1972 version. Soderbergh did a version too, but nobody watched that. Yeah. So anyway, another literary reference for the Kaliber boys.
For the literati.
Yeah.
Okay. Next we've got a song called Jejina. This song,
This is another highlight.
it is, although in certain moods I find the hook slightly corny, like the whole hip hop, hey.
Hey.
That
Well, it's an anthem. It's like, AC/DC's "For Those About to Rock, We Salute You," or I don't know. Rock and roll ain't noise pollution. It's just a celebration of the genre.
for sure. And that's a
Yeah,
great point.
that can be corny for sure.
Or it feels like dated in a way that the most of the album doesn't. So that's kind of what I sense with that hook. Like I get how it might work well in a live context, you get the audience singing it and stuff, but yeah.
Yeah, but I like how they lay claim to their genre, It's
Absolutely.
like this is my domain,
Right. Yeah.
I'm not a businessman, I'm not a filmmaker, I'm not an actor, I'm not, a car mechanic.
Yes.
I'm a hip hop artist. So fair play to them for that.
Hania, what do you think about this track?
Yeah, I just realized that the comments I made about film were actually about this track, because this is the one where they had the Yazachina and they each
No,
have their
also
verse. No?
also
Okay.
they both
Sorry,
have
I'm
that Yazachinam. No, like the Yazachinam is definitely on film. You can see here, Yazachinam, Otomoya Kabina.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I have a few choice couplets here. I like where he goes, Prima, Hiroshima, Tonye moja vina. So Hiroshima is not my fault. And or the beginning, just like, Ja zaczynam, jak prawdziwa prima ballerina. I'm starting like a real prima ballerina. And then to what Mark was saying, yeah, to dziedzina to muzyka, choć nie jestem Mozartem. To nie jest pop, ja reprezentuję hip-hop. Odłóż teleskop, wyrzuć mikroskop. Yeah, good flows. Hania? To the next?
Yeah.
To the next. All right. This is CZK. Which was człowiek z kamienia, so person of stone, man of stone. So the hook on this track goes, żegnaj genia, świat się zmienia, nie do ocalenia. Jest ten frajer z kamienia właśnie tak. Now I got that. Okay. Żegnaj genia, świat się zmienia, nie do ocalenia. Jest ten frajer z kamienia właśnie tak. So goodbye, Genia. The world is changing, not to be saved. There's this sucker made of stone. Anybody want to say anything about this track?
Not a standout for me.
It's not a standout for me, but I think like lyrically, when I read it, it was quite interesting. Hania?
Sorry, my energy level's like waning a little bit, but no, I have no comment on this one.
Okay, your mic just got a little bit crazy too, just so you know.
Check.
Is that for you, Mark, as well?
Yeah, it's distorted, a little bit fuzzy.
Yeah. Maybe you can play with the wires or something?
Maybe, I don't know. Only thing I can think of is to leave and rejoin, because that helped last time. But I haven't touched
Oh.
anything.
It seems better now.
Okay.
All right, next track, DJ Felix. Mark, do you want to say anything about this track?
Yeah, I know I said it was a highlight for me, but I can't think of what it sounds like now.
Okay, well, it starts
Can you
with
remind me?
Yeah, it starts with more than 2 minutes, I believe, 2 minutes and 20 seconds or so, just of instrumental DJ Felix, and it's like bow now, bow now, down, 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 something like that. Wow, and it's kind of got this reverberating, like looping bass line, and
So it's one of the funkier tracks.
I
No?
guess. I mean, I don't know. It's they're like all the rappers are big upping the DJ on this track, and a lot of scratching. And as I said, like 2 minutes of just DJ Felix showing off in the beginning, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it was on this track in particular, but it reminded me of like some of what I heard in the late 90s in H-Town. You know, there was in particular a group that all my students were listening to at that time, Swisha House. You know them?
Kind of,
Paul-
not really, but I'm
Paul
aware of
Wall.
them. Yeah,
Paul Wall with his
Paul Wall.
with his grill, and
Mhm.
I don't know who the other guys were, but you know, that was their trademark, was the chopped and screwed sound.
Right.
You know, I don't know if like what they're doing really qualifies, but it seemed like there were echoes of that. I don't know
Mhm.
if they were just innovating along the same lines, or if you know, there was some mutual influence somewhere.
Little interesting tidbit that I came across on Genius. We know that Magik was not really getting along with the brothers, and we mentioned earlier that this was their last collaboration together. And in an interview, DJ Felix alleges that the last two lines of Magik's verse are Czy dobrze bronią władam, wypadam i życzę dobrej drogi, which means like, am I good at weapons today? Something like that. I'm out and I wish you a good journey. So, and he was like, he says that was him, saying goodbye to the group, that he's out.
Those are Magik's lines.
Yeah.
Hmm. So is that the reason he quit? That part of the history is not clear to me. He didn't get along with the brothers, and so he just said, "I'm out."
Yeah, I think so. And he was
What
like
was it about? Money or artistic differences, or
I don't know exactly. I just think he was a really hard person to get along with, you know. The members of Pactafonica said similar things. Hania, any guesses as to why that breakup happened?
No, not sure. I mean, they were still kids. There's probably drama of some kind.
Yeah, and I think Magik was like probably controlling and like very ambitious, and would probably get frustrated with whatever I don't know. That's what the impression we get from the film, that he's like,
yeah, I was about to say that's, but who knows how accurate that is? You know,
sure. Although I have read like commentary from the members, from both members of Kaliber and Pactafonica, and
yeah,
they're okay
I mean,
with the portrayal of him.
yeah, and clearly he was a troubled individual, or he wouldn't
Right.
have done what he did.
Right. Yeah.
And I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about it later when we look specifically at the film, but yeah, there were certain scenes which made me feel very unsympathetic towards him, right? Like especially at the supermarket or grocery store or whatever, with the chips and the leaving of the basket. You know, it's like, come on, man,
It's
get your head
interesting.
in the game.
It's interesting that I mean, yeah, I can save that for later as well. So we'll just keep going. Yeah, but I just want to say that like the DJ here is like, wow, like you got to give it up for the DJ. Like he's probably an understated member of the group and like hugely important. All right, next track is, and we're not looking at every track, but we are looking at like what I consider the important tracks. Między Miastowa, Intercity Call. I've just picked out a couple things that I think are interesting. So first, I just like the way that this verse flows. So raz, dwa, to jest próba mikrofonu. Wiem, po co mówię, czemu mówię, co i komu. Znam to, co robię, tak jak znam drogę do domu. It's like I've got a real nice bounce to it. And then in this other section, rymuję po polsku, bo nie jestem z Waszyngtonu, Londynu, Rzymu czy nad Balatonu. Nikogo nie klonuję, bo nie lubię klonu. So yeah, this translates to I rhyme in Polish because I'm not from Washington, London, Rome, or from where's Balaton? I feel like, is that in Spain or something? I feel like it might be one of those like British resort places.
Looks like it's in Hungary.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then the next line, I don't clone anyone because I don't like clones. So interesting note from Genius, which I think is apropos, is some of the predecessors to Kaliber in Polish rap, they would maybe be a bit more deferential to English. So using it more frequently and maybe dressing more explicitly like what they saw in music videos. Yeah, for Kaliber and for Yoka specifically, like Polish was their form of expression, and there was no need to kind of lean so heavily into Western hip hop. They really wanted to make something new. Is that it?
Good on them. Yeah,
Yes.
no, I'm glad to hear that.
All right, next we've got Abradab's solo track. We talked about Yoka's earlier, Abradabadra, obviously a play on abracadabra. References Phileas Fogg, who's the protagonist of Around the World in 80 Days.
Yeah.
It's funny that this comes up because I've got a private student and my lessons with him have basically like reverted to me finding a video game from the 90s and playing it with him during the lesson. And last week we played a game based on this book, so it's funny that it came up now. Have you read this book, either of you?
No. I haven't. I've seen the Steve Coogan and Jackie Chan film version, though. I think Schwarzenegger's in it too. It's pretty absurd, but somewhat entertaining.
And is this meant to be a young adult book, or is it? Have you read any Verne?
I mean, it's Jules Verne. What's the other one?
50,000
Leagues
40,
Under the Sea.
Yeah.
Whatever, 40, 50, 20, 500.
It'd be good to get it right. I mean,
No,
do you rate Jules Verne?
I'm not familiar with his work other than
it was 20, by the way, just for
20.
And Journey to the Center of the Earth, also important to mention.
So I mean, like films have been and TV series have been based on his work, and that's really all I'm familiar with. I've not like read the original literary work, so
But do you think that's because you have a sense from the cultural consciousness that you feel like maybe he's a bit too pulp for you?
Oh no, I would be willing to read him. It's just like that's not a priority. Yeah. I still haven't finished all of the Arthur Conan Doyle Sherlock Holmes stories, right? Like that's more of a priority than Jules Verne would be. But no, I have a
Agatha Christie stand up.
Yeah. I have an author friend who rates him very highly.
Okay.
So I mean, I'm not like opposed to reading his work at some point.
Hania, do you want to give Verne flowers?
It's not really my moja dziedzina.
Okay, because you were in France for a while, so maybe you like, yo, Jay Vern. Vernie.
JV.
JV.
I like the illustration on the
yeah.
on the book.
And here's the reference. Didn't even know that I had this in here, Mark, but yeah, there's a couple lines in here. Hipopurai ojcze daj mi daj, no to graj I przemierzaj go tak jak Phileas Fogg, which I've translated to hip hop like lava on the outside, hard and filthy, but the inner fire will not cool down even for 100 years, which is meant to be a reference to Vysotski's statement in Mickiewicz's book Jade Part 3. Our nation is like lava, cold and hard on the outside, dry and filthy, but its inner fire will not cool down in 100 years, no matter what the Russians try and do to us, or the Germans, or now the Americans, but they don't seem too concerned about that. Let us spit on the lava and descend to the depths. No, that's pretty cool though, right? That's
that's
explicit reference there. Okay, move on.
See, they reappropriated the classic. You know? They're not
absolutely
giving the schoolboy interpretation. They're reclaiming the national poet and reappropriating his work for their own purposes.
Sounds like a very Marek Vola thing to do.
Yeah.
All right, we're on to Psy, or Psy, sorry. Psy, because Psy, of course, being the Korean rapper. But
it's what it looks like. Yeah.
Hania, you know Psy, right?
Yes. Yeah.
All right. So Psy.
Isn't he the Gangnam Style guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was his B-side? The Mother, Father, Gentleman. Underrated. Does it deserve?
I don't know. I just remember there was a scandal because he went to the States and avoided his military service, and so all the Koreans were like, "Oh, we hate Psy." And then Gangnam Style came out, and they're like, "Oh, we love Psy. He's a national hero."
Yeah. Good songs, though. Good songs. So this was interesting for me to discover. And Hania, I hope you don't mind that I'm taking the driver's seat on this stuff.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Anytime you want to jump in, you ring the bell. Ring my bell. I'm severely caffeinated, and I know you're battling a cold, so it's love. So this is actually like a very understated battle track, which I never knew until yesterday. But apparently they were called out by a group called Killa's Group. Funny, again, if we talk about that appropriation of English. And they were so disgusted by the poor quality of the attack of the charge that they responded with this kind of playful, fairly nuanced, indirect but direct enough attack where they call them dogs. And if you can see in the English translation here, sometimes a dog will speak up. I'll pet him behind the ear. I'll call him Fluffy, Crumb, Clump. Together with Cinderella, I'll put him between fairy tales. Maybe I'll shake my little finger at him. And then it's a nice hook, which is like, nie kupuję psa, który na mnie szczeka, choć nic mnie nie czeka, kiedy pies na mnie szczeka. Sorry, Poles. Wiem, co czeka psa, który na mnie szczeka. Tak, ja nie kupuję psa. So, I don't buy a dog that barks at me. Even though nothing bad will happen to me if a dog barks at me. I know what awaits a dog that barks at me. And again, we got a lot of dogs and cats on this album. So
yeah, I was just about to say, it's like Pink Floyd's Animals.
Yeah, but it's a good track. Hania, do you like this song?
Yeah, I think I didn't listen to it too deeply. I'm curious about the top right screenshot that you've got. Is that?
Yeah, you can hear the the Killers Group original diss, and it's pretty terrible. Like I couldn't listen to more than a minute. I mean, the production quality was so bad, the flow was really poor. So yeah, I wasn't really feeling it. And but yeah, I like the hook. Onwards and upwards. How are we doing on time, by the way?
We're well over 63 minutes.
Okay. This is epic track on the album.
It's like 85 minutes around the world in 85 minutes.
All right. This is Może tak, może nie. It's
oh, this is a highlight for me. I love this.
Yes. Liliana likes it a lot. It's like she always sings this song around the house. It sounds very similar to the Russian as well. Like you'd say może tak, może niet in Russian. Translates to maybe yes, maybe no. Or I guess in Russian you'd say może da, a może niet. Yeah, they even have a remix of the track on the album, so you get two different versions. I prefer the original. And I've pulled out a couple parts that are fun. It's like wielu dla pieniędzy gra, a może dla kariery, a może kurwa pizda, a może do cholery, a może jestem joka brat i mam na to papiery, a może nie, a może tak i nie, bo kto to wie, kto powie i wytłumaczy mi tak. You can see the translation there. Do you want to read that, Mark?
Maybe so, maybe no. Maybe so, maybe no. Maybe no. Maybe so, maybe no. Maybe so, maybe no.
Exactly.
That's my translation. No, it inspired me.
Nice. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's good that you mentioned that, because I think, yeah, maybe so, maybe not. Or that's another translation. So you could see it as maybe yes, or you could see it as maybe so. Hania, any thoughts on the translation of that?
On the translation?
Like, would you go maybe so or maybe yes? What do you prefer there?
So and no rhyme, so
yeah,
that's my preference.
Yeah.
I think yes and no. I'd go with.
Okay. Mark, do you want to read any of the translations I've got up here?
It's really small for me, so I don't think I'm best equipped to do that. I would have to enlarge my screen.
Well, he says many play for money, or maybe for a career, or maybe a whore, a cunt, or maybe for the hell of it, or maybe I'm a yoka brat, like I'm a joker brother, and I have the papers for it. And then in this other part that I liked is like, a może czekoladka, a może cukiereczek. Może wolę budyń, a może kisieleczek. Which is, or maybe chocolate, or maybe a candy. Maybe I prefer pudding, or maybe jelly. Oh, and I like this part. Może koty dziś przyniosą jointy. Like, maybe the cats will bring joints today. Yeah, so pretty psychedelic track, and there's a Don Quixote reference. There's a reference to Sisyphus. And yeah, I'd say a very impressive track lyrically and in terms of flow.
I've seen that term used to describe their music. I don't know if it's specifically related to this album, but in what way do you think it's psychedelic? Like Kaliber 44, how are they psychedelic? I can hear like the jazz influences and the I don't know, more scratchy hip hop, stylistic influences.
I'm ready for this
but
question.
how is it?
How
is it psychedelic?
Yo,
tell me.
Put me in, baby. All right. Well, first of all, like their first album is called. We'll talk about it a tiny bit later, but it's like they call it like horror or psycho rap. So it's like actually, it's really like, you remember that part in the movie where he sings for him in the corridor. Plus y minus to jedyne co widzę.
Yeah.
So that's like, that would be a more like psycho rap delivery. And as far as this album, I would say you mentioned the word trance early on for that one track. So I'd say that kind of has that kind of, and then I would just say the frequent references to weed, the imagery, which is like very bizarre, and
but that's psycho.
no,
To me, that's not the same thing as psychedelic, right? Like, again, as a rocker, when I hear psychedelic or psychedelia, I'm thinking of Beatles 1967. I'm thinking of Pink Floyd. I'm thinking of, the San Francisco scene with Jefferson Airplane and the Grateful Dead.
yeah.
So is there a different meaning to the term in the hip hop lexicon? Like psycho, if you're talking about psycho, I think of, I don't know, like Insane Clown Posse or something. Like they would be psycho rap, right?
Would you consider like Busta Rhymes psycho?
I don't know. I'm not familiar with him.
Okay, Hania, what do you want to? I'm not letting you fade into oblivion here. So why don't you try and tackle that?
No, I mean, it just, if you're applying, I know we don't have psychedelic applied to rap traditionally, but yeah, so it's hard to say if that's like, if you could create a definition in rap or hip hop, but if you could, then I would say that the way that it, like the idea of the trip and just the drug related references and this kind of stream of consciousness in the rapping, for me, that has at least the idea of psychedelic music. It reminds me of that, or it brings me into that space, but I don't know if
yeah, I mean, I think this is the kind of, go on.
Well, I would think it'd be more related to the instrumentation. Like, another person in the hip hop world who is sometimes considered psychedelic, I'm told, is Travis Scott, right? Like, apparently the backing tracks they're kind of trippy,
Yeah.
There's like it's acid music. That's basically what psychedelia is. I guess it could also be weed inspired, but that makes me think more of like stoner metal, like some early Black Sabbath or something. Not so much like, the Summer of Love vibe. So I maybe the term is just used differently.
Yeah.
But to
I mean, I
to
think the
me,
weed
psycho
influence.
rap would not be the same thing as like psychedelic rap. But
But
maybe
for me,
that's
psycho is more about like the aggressive, which you would find
exactly.
Yeah, but this album doesn't have that same tone. The first album, which I urge you to listen to, it's very, very good, and I think you'll like it, really.
Yeah.
That's psycho. This, for me, is more psychedelic because it's giving you random images. It's like very streamy. Like, I could light a joint to this and just, really lose myself in the music. That garage sample that Hanya mentioned, that's like a total like track that I'd love to hear when I'm high, which I don't know if I will ever be again, but I hope one day in Amsterdam I'll put this album on. What's that track though? The Streets of Amsterdam or something like Jacques something?
Jacques Brel.
Yeah. All right, people. Let's keep going because I know you guys have some hot takes about the film. So, Jeszcze Więcej MC. We don't have to spend long. This is not a standout track for me. The hook is decent. Panie akustyku, proszę więcej MC. Na głośniku, jeszcze więcej MC. Od południa do Bałtyku. Something like that. Any words or we go on?
We can keep moving.
Thank you. All right. We're done with our track-by-track analysis. I've got some kind of random prompts that I thought we should discuss. And I do want to keep this episode not Odyssean in its length.
Right.
Hania, what do you think about this prompt? This is your IGCS. This is your CAE test.
Yeah, I don't know because when I'm listening to it now, Caliber 44 or Fish or others, it's like a language lesson. Like that's part of the fun of it is the challenge of like looking things up, trying to get the references and so on. But I guess when I was younger, it just when you don't understand the words, maybe you're feeling the vibe, you're rolling with the song, things stick out, like you were saying earlier, that make themselves memorable because of the yeah, just the catchiness of the sound that they're making, but you don't decipher it. So it's yeah, it's just a different experience for sure.
Is it something you like? Would you mind at all, like, or like if you hear like rap in Arabic or rap in another language you don't know at all? Like, is that an impediment for you, or you're just as eager to listen?
Yeah, I think as I've gotten, yeah, unfortunately, when I've gotten older, I think it's become more of an impediment. I had like a Nigerian friend share some music from a band, and I was not as into it just because I had no idea what they were saying, and at the time I was too lazy to look it up.
Because for me, it's
Uh,
sometimes I think I sometimes just prefer it, you know, because for me when I listen to a rap I don't understand, the voice becomes absolutely an instrument, you know. So like
yeah,
when I hear
yeah, I
like
see that.
when I hear Arabic rap, I'm just into the flow, and it's like I can really enjoy it. Mark,
It's a very interesting question. I mean, I think in most cases, I can't appreciate if it's music with lyrics, right? Or the lyrics are an important part of the music, as is the case with rap, obviously, and most pop songs. You know, it's not primarily instrumental. There are words that are sung, and so for me, if they're not in English, I'm always going to feel like I'm missing something, you know. And this is true. Like there was a period of my life where I listened only to classical music and opera, and so I would always try to like read the lyrics in the original language and try to understand them. Or if I didn't do that, I just felt like I was missing something very important, you know. So when I was listening to Wagner, I would try to find the German lyrics and like read and translate them. Or if it's Italian opera, if it's Verdi or whatever, same thing with the Italian. Um, but yeah, I think as I've gotten older, I'm less patient to do that, you know. It's like I'd rather go deeply into a Bob Dylan track and focus on the lyrics there rather than trying to translate something from, let's say, Jacques Brel, since you just mentioned him. But it does vary from language to language. Like there's a lot of Brazilian pop music that I'll listen to, and I'm not sure what I can't follow everything. You know, I can pick out some words here and there, but I just love the music so much that I just go with it, you know. And I can remember there was a radio station in Houston that I would tune into when I was like studying Spanish, and it was just all Spanish all the time. The DJ was speaking Spanish. The ads were in Spanish,
DJ
and all
Eric
the songs
Gonzalez. Sorry.
were in Spanish. So yeah, and it's like I still remember that because you have to focus so much on trying to understand that it helps the listener retain the lyrics in a way that maybe one couldn't if it were one's native language, right? Like I still remember this song. Me gusta esta chica, tengo que conquistarla. which means I like this girl. I want to conquer her. I have to conquer her.
Don
You know,
Quixote.
it's such a strange thing to remember. It's so random, but you know, I was listening to it on Spanish radio.
Well, again, I want to make the argument that it's not an inferior experience. You know, just the way you gain something at
Yeah,
the
it
same
doesn't
time as
have
you
to
lose
be.
something, and you gain
Yeah.
something. That's my point.
Well,
you gain
and if
something
we're-
that a native would not. Sorry, but you gain something that a native wouldn't. Right? Like it's
well,
like
it's yeah, it's
you lose
definitely a different
something.
perspective.
You lose something when you are of the same culture or when you understand everything.
I agree, and
So
it's
that's
and
all.
sometimes it's nice to be thrust into that unfamiliar space, right, and just go with it, which is what I had to do with this, right? Like I looked online for some translations, but basically I just turned on Spotify and listened. You
Mhm.
know, I looked up a few things and focused on certain phrases and titles and so on, but the initial experience is just one of strangeness, and so it's fun to like just be exposed to it and then pick out the parts that
Yeah.
that grab me, you know, like the cat, so
Mhm.
that I focus on that, or
Right.
maybe yes, maybe no. Oh, okay. So picking out and or Moya Gigina, you know, like that. Okay, so I learned that phrase. That's nice.
And it's also interesting because you can probably feel like tone, right? Like you can get what is their mood even without knowing the words. You can get the mood.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like you heard a person in Swaziland hears Snoop Dogg, they can feel his aura, right? And
He got aura.
hell yeah. and you know, like that's the ultimate test as well of your musicality, because if we talk about people listening to like Western rap in countries that are not English speaking, you know, they're not listening so much based on reputation. They're like listening to what has the best beats, and like it would be cool to hear Jay-Z without understanding his words and just hearing his voice. We don't get to have that experience, you know? So it's like in a way we're denied that of just, I mean, of course we could try and listen and just like block out the meaning and we'd still, you know, but anyway. All right. Let's move to the next prompt. I think we've already kind of discussed this, yeah?
Yeah, it's related.
Okay. So, film critics in the house, Hania, you said you did a little bit of prep for this, and I demand that you share something.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote kind of a synopsis, if you don't mind me reading that.
Not at all.
Okay, so Jesteś Bogiem is a film that came out in 2012, directed by Leszek David, which depicts the formation and the rise of the rap group Paktofonika, with the action taking place from around 1998 until 2000, when one of the group's members, Magik, committed suicide. It's based on the screenwriter's book and is considered a loose interpretation of actual events. The film was highly anticipated in Poland because Kaliber 44, Magik's group prior to Paktofonika, is the most famous hip hop group in Poland. Paktofonika members Rahim and Focus collaborated with the filmmakers, helping the actors with their performances and portrayal of the group members. And I read that the actor playing Magik is wearing some of his actual clothing in the film. Moving on to the movie itself, it starts with Focus working in like a kind of metal shop and listening to techno, where he meets Magik, who plays him some of Kaliber 44's music and later introduces him to Rahim at a rap cipher where they decide to form a group. From there, it shows their various adventures and misadventures around the housing estates in Silesia, including an early concert where Rahim and Focus apparently have too much stage fright to perform, so Magique performs alone and wins over the booing crowd. We later see Pactafonica break into Focus's workplace to record their first songs. We see their dealings with a sleazy producer who rips them off, selling their songs at Empik, which, like Tom said, is like Polish Sam Goody or Best Buy, and doesn't give them a share of the proceeds. They then meet a more supportive producer and are soon gaining a big following and recording their first big album, Kinematographia. But in the background of their success, Magic is struggling with family drama, his comically horrible in-laws, on and off relationship with Justina, his baby mama, and his seeming depression. The movie culminates in his sudden suicide, which happened just 8 days after Kinematographia was released in December 2000. The last scenes in the film are of the last concert by Pactafonica in 2003 without Magic, and the film is intercut with footage of the event showing how loved they are and the legacy that they would leave behind. And from a review by Joanna Ostrowska, published on Polish Film Web, which is like IMDb, she writes, "Each of us knows the story of Magic, Focus, and Rahim. Pactafonica is a representative lineup of characters raised in times of transformation who cannot find their way in the new reality. In David's film, their biography was visualized in a very moderate and economical way. Jesteś Bogiem is a picture that does not claim to be a masterpiece. Thanks to Radosław Władczuk's cinematography, the Silesian landscapes of Bogucice and Mikołdo do not look like standard postcards from housing estates, which in Poland at the beginning of the 21st century were associated only with poverty and juvenile crime. The film was nominated for 8 Orwe, or Eagles, National Film Awards.
Your mic is hurting our ears. No, for real.
Yikes.
It's like the buzzing thing came in pretty strong. Now you're muted.
How about now? I was wondering if it was my...
It's bad.
Yeah, it's buzzing.
Sorry. I tried
good.
not to interrupt as long as possible because it was good content.
Hello.
That's better.
Now it's okay.
Weird.
But
Weird.
now I'm echoing.
I'm wondering if that's
And
worth
you're
rereading
echoing too.
or that's a lot though. So
Yes.
Well, I followed it, you know.
yeah, sure.
So I think it's okay. I was just noticing, like, so the first
Can we do a 40-second break and then we'll wrap up with the strong last 5 minutes or whatever?
let's push through.
I have to pee,
Let's finish
man.
it. Well, just wet your chair. All right, go ahead.
All right. We'll have a good strong ending that'll be anxiety free. Thanks.
All right.
I'm back in the building.
All right. Are we
Check.
back?
Yep.
So yeah, I was just gonna say the first Pactophonica album is what? Kinematographia, right? Is that right? Is that the title?
I think so.
So there's another cinematic
Mm.
illusion, right? It reminds us of Kino, but it also reminds me of Pornographia, which is a novel by the Polish writer Witold Gombrowicz. You know about this?
Mm-mm.
He's also the author of Fair du Dirk. So here's a brief description of him. Witold Marian Gombrowicz was a Polish writer and playwright, 1904 to 1969. His works are characterized by deep psychological analysis, a certain sense of paradox, and absurd anti-nationalist flavor. I recommend both of those novels just as a side note. Gombrowicz.
Do you know? Have you read these?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
In translation. Um Pornography in particular, very strange, violent, um surrealist, Kafkaesque in a way. Yeah, you should check it out. I mean, he's like a big deal internationally. He was nominated for the Nobel Prize 4 times from 1966 to 1969. Strange, interesting character. But yeah, those two books in particular, Pornographia and Ferdy Dirk, which is just some strange word that he coined.
Nice.
Interesting.
Show notes, baby.
Show notes.
So thoughts on the film from either of you?
Well, as I said, Justina is Yoko times 10. She helped break up the band, although Magik certainly contributed to that with his own issues, personal demons, and so on. Not that this matters, it's neither here nor there, but the actress playing Justina is like a Polish Naomi Watts. Beautiful.
She's beautiful, agreed.
But yeah, I wasn't sympathetic to that character. She's quite manipulative, but he's, he wasn't an ideal husband either. And he was kind of a fuck up.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a failing of the film that his Maggie's family and Houston are so I don't know, in some ways stereotypical or just comical. They don't really seem real.
Your
And
mic
just
is
kind of
crackling.
oh,
Snap, crackle, pop.
snap crackle pop. Maybe
Mark, I just got
now it's
Steve's
okay.
messages, and that put me in a downer mood.
What about the slides?
Steve he left the group. He left our group, and with like a bit of he went on a little rant.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways.
Well, we can discuss that off camera. We're in the middle of a live stream, raw though it may be.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, as I say, I felt less sympathetic towards him by the end. Of course, it's still a tragic conclusion, but it seemed so avoidable. Like it didn't have to go down that way.
Agreed.
Unfortunate.
Yeah. It seems like with better mental help, or it could have just been
communication.
a really dark night of the soul. Like it's like if he could have got through that, maybe I don't know. Who knows, like how substances affected his last week or whatever.
Yeah, well, after watching the film, I read something. I'm going to share some more intertextual references here because they're pretty humorous in my opinion. But after watching the film, I read a chapter of The Sacred Mushroom and the Cross, which is what I'm reading at the moment. And it says a similar connection between sexual influence and sorcery appears in the derivation of our word magic, synchronicity. Its immediate source is the Latin magus, representing the Old Persian magush, the title of a religious official whose power of mind and body earned him a reputation for sorcery. We have met the Magi earlier as one of the prime sources in the ancient writings for plant names and medicinal folklore. Their title may now be traced to a Sumerian phrase for big penis and seen to be cognate with the Greek pharmakos, enchanter, wizard, from which comes our pharmacist. So there's like sexual energy, sorcery, plant lore, pharmaceuticals, not like big pharma, but like natural plant sorcery and magic. And of course he was familiar with the plants, wasn't he?
Yeah, it's true.
Whether or not he had a big penis, I can't speak to that. I don't know.
This album is another classic. I recommend all of our listeners to check out, especially if the album that we're speaking about moves you. Completely different sound. And at first, I couldn't handle this album. It was like too aggressive for me, and didn't really fit what I thought of as like hip hop. But in recent years, I guess recent, I would say like the last 10 years, I've started to really enjoy this album, and I think it's like incredible. Especially again, if we think about their age, they would have been, late teens when they were working on this. So it's
Do you prefer it to the one we
no, I chose
focused on?
ours because I think it's like the best, the standout album. And it's a bit more listenable, like on a regular day basis, because you really got to be in a mood for this album. But if you're like in a mood where you got to like let off some steam, this is a great album. Hardcore psycho rap. Hania, have you heard this album?
No.
You should check it out. All right, final slide is the group that jumped out at me as a potential like American analog is Cypress Hill. Kind of like psychedelic flows from Be Real and that kind of staccato, and obviously their respective adoration and reverence for Mary Jane. ChatGPT also threw out some names which I filtered and decided that I do see the explicit parallels with Del the Funky Homo Sapien and the Deltron 3030 collective and MF Doom as well, to some extent, in terms of kind of I don't know if I'm really ready to make that argument, so I'm going to back off from that one. But you guys want to make any comparisons for people that have never listened to this group and maybe want to know what they might be getting into?
No, I'm not qualified to do that, but I would just suggest jumping in and having a listen.
Yeah. Hania, any final words?
Not really. Just how important Kaliber 44 are to Poland and Polish hip hop is like it's all around me. Like they're having anniversary concerts, or at least Tectophonic guys are, and um, yeah, they will surely last another 100 years. Their music.
Your mic is jacked. All right.
We'll
Mark,
smooth it out in post.
talk
Yeah,
to us
so
about the.
well, okay, so for the next text, I want to do something in memoriam David Lynch. So tell me about
Nice.
your Lynchian experiences. Have you seen any of his films?
Did we do a pod on Mulholland or no?
No.
Oh, okay. Some reason I feel like I think
You've
Joe
seen
did.
it?
Joe did a pod on Mulholland, and so I rewatched it for that kind of recently.
Okay. So you've seen that. Have you
seen it
seen
a
Lost
few times.
Highway?
I've seen something else, and I don't remember which. I remember like some kind of weird camera
Blue
security.
Velvet?
Was it? There was like a
Yeah.
camera security system outside of a house. Does that sound
Oh,
familiar?
that's Lost Highway. Yeah.
Okay.
You've seen it then?
Yes, but I'm ready to watch it again, and I didn't really like it.
Okay.
But I'm happy to go down that. I'm happy to dig deeper.
Well, that's the one I was thinking of focusing on because I recently rewatched it. I mean, Mulholland is probably his masterpiece, Mulholland Drive, but that's too obvious a choice for texting. I think I'd rather pick something which is also great, but maybe not as.
And what's the series
well known.
that became like ubiquitous or
Twin Peaks?
Twin Peaks? Yeah, I never watched.
I mean,
that
we
either.
we could do Fire Walk with Me, which is like the movie prequel or sequel to the series.
Do you
Or
like David Lynch,
I don't know.
Hanya?
We just started watching Firewalk with Me. We've got like 30 minutes left, and yeah, it's
What do you
interesting.
think? Yeah.
I didn't realize like at this time when I was watching, like I watched Blue Velvet, how much it's showing like America in the 50s more so, like such a such an older time period, even though I feel like he's so prominent in alternative culture, counterculture. So yeah, it's really cool. It's really larger than life, bizarre, but it's funny. Yeah, it's a lot of
Your
things.
mic sounds better.
Yeah, it's I mean, maybe some people don't think of him this way, but he's actually hilarious. They're very memorable comic moments in Lost Highway, which is also a kind of horror film. So you've got the comedy, the comedic elements mixed with these horror tropes, I guess. Another possibility would be the short series called Rabbits. That's only 40 minutes. It was a kind of mini series described as a sitcom, but then again, it's kind of like a surrealist horror series. But the all the episodes together are like in one 40-minute. I don't know if you'd call it a feature, but it you can watch it as one 40-minute film, but it was like several, I guess 4 episodes linked together. If you don't want to watch a full feature,
I'm fine with whatever you decide.
that would be a possibility. All right, well, we'll talk about that off camera. Something Lynchian for episode 3,
okay,
season 4 of Texting. So we'll go ahead and wrap things up. This has been episode 2 of season 4. We'd like to thank our guest, Hania, for joining us.
Thank you.
Our text was Tell us the Polish again.
63 minut dookoła świata by Kaliber 44.
Around the World in 83 Minutes by Kaliber 44, the
I
Polish
guess you have the extended version,
hip-hop group.
right? Because mine only has 63 minutes, but you have the bonus features on yours.
What did I say?
83.
Oh, 83? Yeah, 63 is what I meant. But it's all a numbers game. Yeah, so subscribe to the Substack YouTube channel. We'll put all that in the links. Thanks again. See you
Much
next
love, everybody.
time.
Thank you.
All right, I hit stop. If we could just stay logged on for a few minutes. It's uploading now.